From the beautiful Missouri Ozarks, it's P.I.D. Radio. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
Oh, I'm Sharon Gilbert, and we are welcoming you to our back bedroom, the podcast studio.
Yes, this is our official world headquarters, the back bedroom of the house on the ridge.
Overlooking the crows that are outside.
And just up the road from the bait and tackle shop. Last stop before Table Rock Lake.
We are in a plum position here. We are indeed. Oh, good grief.
From here we can see the world.
From here we can see the cattle.
That's right.
That's all that matters. Boy, it's crazy here. We first of all, we want to remind you, please download our app. And we say that not simply... We get nothing. Seriously. We get nothing when you download the app.
No.
It's free. It's free. It's free. Your donations help us to pay for all of that. Mm-hmm. But we want you to download it because that may be the only place you're going to find us one day, because you just don't know what the gatekeepers might do.
Oh, yes. What they're going to find to object to. And we had more evidence of this past week. Last week, Saturday, 1 week ago, they found something in
something from years ago.
3-year-old program that they said, "Oh no, this violates community standards." And
look, it is what it is. That's their playground, and if they want to be, I know it's not fair, but again, their playground. Mm-hmm. So. We want you to download the app because that is the way to get everything. Plus, Derek and I are kind of thinking about doing some app-only content.
Yeah, and also some app-only interaction. Mm-hmm. You'll notice if you have a copy of our app, on the top menu bar there, on the left side, it says GHTV. On the right side, if you've logged in and created a profile, you'll find whatever you use as your avatar in the far right corner. Next to it's a little magnifying glass.
By the way, we don't track you. You can log in, and seriously, we just that's private.
Yeah, there's some information at Subsplash, which is the developer tracks, but that's only so they can return you to the same place you left. Mm-hmm. Know what programs that you've listened to or watched, and if you want to go back to those, you can do that. But anyway, there's a little magnifying glass so you can search for content inside the app. The next to that is what looks like two little word balloons. Or thought balloons, word balloons, I guess.
Conversation balloons, like from a cartoon or something.
And so there is actually like a social media sort of function inside there with conversations. And we're going to start adding those to the app so that if you want to comment on a program, whether it's the Gilbert House Fellowship Bible Study, one of these programs, a View from the Bunker interview, you can do that inside the app. Or if you want
to start a thread and communicate with other people.
Yes, because you can, in those conversations, you can convert a... conversation to a prayer request, which has its own section within the conversation. It's really a pretty powerful feature that we've never taken advantage of because, honestly,
we didn't notice it.
We didn't notice it. I mean, we're so busy creating the content that looking at the app is like, oh, wait, did you know we could do this? That's really cool. And when you tap and hold on it, you can do this other thing. Wow. All right. This app is more powerful than we realized. I mean, besides having the Bible module in there where you can get an audio Bible and, the idea that we can interconnect through the app, share prayer requests for one another, and just comment and discuss Bible studies, interviews, whatever, is really pretty powerful. So feel free to log in and start using those. I will open up these conversations so that all can join. It's not going to be a private thing. Sometimes churches will use these in other ways for, sending messages back and forth between the elders or whatever.
Right.
That's great. But we can use it as sort of a closed social media thing so that...
make the fellowship an actual fellowship of people who are fellowshipping with one another.
Right.
Yes.
And you can do all of this through the app. So let's take advantage of the opportunity. So again, it's in the top menu bar, the two little things that look like word balloons when you tap on that, and that will get you access to all of those conversations.
So that's pretty cool. So download the app, and many of you have done that.
Yes.
Something like over 12,000.
Over 12,000.
So thank you for doing that. Also, many of you have already helped us out with the Build Barn Better project. We were just talking to our contractor yesterday who's came over and walked through the barn again. Derek has been judiciously going through and pulling out family-oriented boxes of things that we don't want to donate.
A box of my first grade homework was in there.
Seriously, that was awesome. I so love that. We've got a box of Nicole's grade school things, so we're going to put that with those. Whether or not that means anything to Nicole down the line, don't know, but I think it's kind of cool.
This is what your dad was doing in 1967.
We have some eggs. There is the cow.
Eggs are good for you.
I will not milk the cow. We have no cow.
Underline the subject of each sentence.
Yeah, you're a very bright young man. So yeah, we're pulling all that out. And once that is done, Derek is starting to congregate everything in one area that's going to be the donate. We've already found out that there's a church nearby that has a special ministry for those who've lost everything in a fire or whatever reason. And so we're donating as much as possible to that ministry.
Right. Because there are some things in there that Mom just doesn't need anymore.
Right.
Housewares, kitchenware, things like that would be really useful in a situation
Very
like
basic
that.
things that you need again if you lose them in a fire or or a flood or whatever happens.
So, God bless her. Mom is well cared for. And she's, had lunch with her yesterday, as I do every Friday. And, take her out for her standard cheeseburger and fries, which her favorite meal. God bless her. And at age 86, she is still healthy, is still going strong.
Yep,
so
she is. So yes, we're in that. And as I said, the contractor was out there, and Derek and he had a conversation about exactly where we would need the electrics and things like that, and a special hookup for the HVAC system.
Just one power outlet that they will need outside, or power connection that they'll need outside.
Right. So we're getting there. We are getting there. Getting to the first action of the first phase. And we want to thank you because you have given us generously from your own hearts and your pocketbooks.
Yes.
So, and those of you who are praying for us, thank you. And I also want to thank anybody who has been praying for my niece, Liz Abradis. She is going to Uganda with a group that's going to minister in the streets. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
They're going to be teaching others. They're going to be having a large service that's an evangelical service. So please keep praying for Liz. She is just a firecracker for the Lord.
She really is. And this fulfills some prophetic words that were spoken over her some years ago.
So yes, thank you very much for all of you who have helped out Liz, and especially those who are praying for her. Please continue to do so, because this is a big deal, and it's a part of the world that's maybe a little bit dangerous. So pray that she is protected and the whole team are protected.
Amen.
Yes, boy, things to talk about this morning.
Well, speaking of the dangerous world, I mean, we got a couple of big issues that will probably dominate the conversation today. Number one is the Bilderberg Group meeting, which is going on as we speak, and also the decision by the Biden administration to authorize the transfer of F-16 fourth-generation fighter jets to Ukraine.
Oh, what could possibly go wrong there? I'm sure that Vladimir Putin is sitting there saying,
thermonuclear war. That's
I know.
Small little.
Well, here's the thing. Couple of little side points that I think make a big difference in the light of this news about the F-16s. One is that the Biden administration has just admitted to a clerical error.
Oh, yeah. This is really, really convenient. The Pentagon this past week said, well, we overvalued the
everything
material that we've sent to Ukraine thus far. We actually, in accounting for all of that stuff, we use the replacement cost, which means the cost it will take to replace the arms that we've sent to Ukraine is the value that was placed on it. So
instead of what we paid for it.
Yeah, we should have used what we paid for it at the time we bought the stuff rather than the new higher inflated price, which means suddenly we've got it's $3 billion. It's $3 billion less than we thought, which means we can send Ukraine another $3 billion worth of stuff without having to go to Congress to ask for the authorization.
Okay, here's my question. The $3 billion worth of stuff, are you valuing that at the replacement cost or what it's costing us now? Look, if you're going to give away something, you have to price it at the replacement cost, because if you are a military operation, you need that stuff.
Right. I know when I was in sales, I know that was always a debate. The company I worked for at the time would use replacement cost when we were selling material to our customers, which meant that when prices were dropping, we were the first ones to reflect the price drop. When the mills the price of steel had declined, we were selling stuff based on the cost it would take to put the new material back in the inventory, which is great. But it sometimes meant if the price drop was substantial, that you were selling stuff for less than you paid for it. Mm. Now, the way around that is to always price it based on what you paid for the material, which seems like common sense. But then when prices were dropping at the mill and your competitors were then lowering their prices, you were trying to sell stuff at the old higher price. And so it was always a debate internally. Do we price it at actual cost or replacement cost?
But the reality is that it will have to be replaced.
Absolutely, I agree. That's
so that's how you have to value it in the books.
Right. That was the debate.
No, I get that.
When we're running a business. Now, the United States government is of the opinion that it doesn't really matter. We just, print more money. And so this is just an accounting trick. I agree. It's stupid. But it's an accounting trick used to justify just sending more stuff to Ukraine without having to ask Congress for the authorization. That's all this is.
Now, the F-16s, the Biden administration has said not that the United States will directly send planes to Ukraine, but indirectly. Those countries that have F-16s that we have sold to them or placed there for military defense purposes, feel free to give those to Ukraine. So, let's say that happens. Mm-hmm. They have to be armed with missiles. Mm-hmm. They have to have pilots.
They have to have pilots.
Who's going to train them and who's providing the material that has to go along with them?
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into this because not only do you have to train the Ukrainian pilots on new systems, you presumably have to rewrite software, write instruction manuals or whatever in Ukrainian because you can't assume that the pilots read and speak English. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that goes into this. This is not the kind of thing, first of all, that's going to happen overnight. So for anyone to think this is a game changer, no, it's going to be quite some time before those things ever get to the battlefield.
And Sharon's hand goes up because if they do go on the battlefield relatively quickly, they will be flown by someone who already knows the system.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Now, mind you, months ago, it was like 2-3 months ago, Zelensky was in the UK and had a photo op with Ukrainian soldiers, pilots, who were there in Britain training on British planes.
Yeah.
But then later it was like, okay, Rishi Sunak is considering training pilots from Ukraine. Excuse me, wasn't there a photo op with Zelensky and his pilots?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because UK doesn't fly the F-16. They've got their own the Tornado.
Typhoons.
They're Typhoons. But the UK doesn't have any Typhoons to spare. So what are they training them on?
I think they've been training them on F-16s.
Could be.
Because we've got bases over there.
This seems to me like just layers of legal plausible deniability. Look, we didn't train. Don't shoot that nuclear missile at us, Mr. Putin. We didn't train
that hypersonic missile.
Or the hypersonic missile or that Poseidon underwater nuclear drone. Look, the Russians aren't stupid. They're looking at this and saying, okay, yeah, all right. It's for some reason these Ivy League giant brains who run the United States government think that this is somehow going to fool the Russians and, hey, you had no right to shoot down our plane or hit our aircraft carrier with a hypersonic missile because we weren't the ones flying the plane. Yeah, we trained the guys and gave them the plane and gave them the missiles and gave them the software and used the guidance systems and our missiles. And it was our Patriot missiles that shot down your missiles that were trying to take out our missiles. But we didn't do it.
Now, mind you, there are times when I'm sitting here watching Derek and I wish we were on video. Now, I don't want to have to put on makeup just to do a video. Most of the time I do not wear makeup. Isn't that right? I just don't. The only time I put it on is when I have to be on camera or we're going someplace. because frankly, I just don't like wearing makeup.
I don't blame you.
But I wish you could see Derek's animated face and those eyebrows going to town as he's making these points. But another point to make is the Biden administration is in a tug of war with the Republican-led House over the budget. See, the ceiling we have raised the debt ceiling, I don't know, 90 times or something
78
ridiculous?
times. Okay. 78 times in the history of the country.
Tickety-2 times since 1960s.
Yes. I'd have to look at that. 78 times, period. Yeah. I don't know when they started raising the debt ceiling.
A long time. Many times. Too many times.
It's just a kick the can down the road.
Imagine that you have a credit card that you've maxed out. But you need to buy more stuff.
Yeah.
So you ask the credit card company, can you raise my limit? And they do.
Yeah, again.
And again. The country has been asking the credit card company to raise the limit again and again. And at some point, somebody's got to say no.
And that's what Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans are trying to do. They're not wanting to say, look, we don't want to raise the limit, period.
But the
They're
Biden
saying we'll raise the limit if you'll agree to cut spending in certain areas.
Yes, but here's the thing. At the same time that the Biden administration is trying to get a yes from McCarthy, they admit to a $3 billion clerical error. And they authorize the F-16s.
Right. Well, again.
Is this not the worst bargaining tactic in the world?
We're not giving them F-16s. We're saying that the Netherlands is going to give them F-16s.
No, but like I say, it means
Lockheed
that there
Martin
have to be
sell
things.
More F-16s.
Here's the thing. 4,600 F-16s were made. That's how many exist.
Right.
From what I've been able to find. I think the U.S. has 800 of them. The rest of them?
2,800, I think.
Whatever it is.
No, you're right.
I think we have 800.
Right.
And that means that 2,800, is it 2,800 plus 18? No, 4,600 minus 800 is 3,800.
I think that's right. I looked this up the other day and I forgot.
But that means the rest of them are in the rest of the world.
Right.
And probably NATO countries. Although I think it's F-15s that Turkey was trying to get. But these F-16s, they are workhorse planes. And that's why Ukraine wants them. Now, here's the other side of this problem. Oop, just dropped my glasses. Here's the other side of this problem. If F-16s start flying in Ukraine, at what point do they fly into Russia?
Well, that's the big question, because that would certainly constitute an escalation of the war, and Moscow has basically said, don't do that.
Yeah, well, here you are. You're in a dogfight or some sort of an air fight with another plane. And they lure you across the border.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be... This is problematic in that regard.
And Tom Cruise is not going to help here.
No. But of course, he flew an F-18 back in the day anyway. So, but yeah, the
imaginary one.
United States, Belgium, Denmark, Netherlands, Norway, Greece, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Turkey has the F-16.
No.
The F-35 is the one that the Turks want.
That's the one they want. That's it.
Bahrain, Egypt, Israel has the F-16.
I knew they had them, and they actually rewrote the software.
Iraq,
they made
Jordan,
it better.
Yeah, they did. I've heard from people in the military that every time the U.S. Air Force trains with the Israelis on the F-16s, the Israeli F-16s win 9 out of 10 times because their software is better. The UAE, Morocco, Indonesia, Pakistan, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, Chile, Venezuela.
Venezuela, that's bad.
Yeah.
Chile, that's bad.
Bulgaria is negotiating to buy 8 or 9. And Ukraine has expressed interest in the F-16.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing that's going on right now, not to mention the fact that China is trying to make inroads into South America. The Arab Summit in fact, they may still be meeting in Jeddah.
Yes.
Zelensky spoke there.
That was
Zelensky's Jewish.
That's really interesting, especially because the highlight of the Arab summit was Bashar al-Assad showing up as sort of like a prodigal son returning home.
Who works closely with Russia.
Yeah. Russians have a base in the northwest of the country, which has been the one region that has remained loyal to the Assad family. So
what did Zelensky hope to accomplish?
I don't know.
They listened to him politely. There are videos of him descending the plane and being glad-handed by Mohammed bin Salman and all of them.
Yeah, not sure. I really don't know. Other than maybe they hope to sell, get rebuilding contracts. I don't know. Because BlackRock has had a senior executive over in Ukraine talking about how we need to, begin the process of building Ukraine.
No, I think I would wait on that.
They need to finish fighting first. That needs to be the deal. But yeah, Assad is back in the fold as a member of the Arab League. They basically have admitted now, all of the Gulf allies of the United States, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, that this whole 12-year rebellion in Syria is ended. Syria has, with the help of Russia and Iran, regained control over most of the country. The one area they don't control is the Kurdish northeast and the area around Deir ez-Zor, which is the oil-rich region in Syria that's still controlled by about 1,000 U.S. soldiers. I think we got 900. I'm not sure if they're Marines or U.S. Army, but we've got soldiers, boots on the ground, that have been in Syria for years, just very quietly controlling we have invaded Syria.
We've had quite a number of proxy wars going on in that region.
Yeah. So when our soldiers come home from Syria, who knows? When will they come home? We don't know. But they're there now and have been there for a while. But it's clear that the Arab nations that we had partnered with to try to drive Assad from power, they've kind of given up and said, forget it. This is over. Come back in.
Bottom line, there are a lot of vain things being imagined by tribes all over the world, and the spirits behind these individuals and groups. It is the Red Wing saga on steroids. I could never write what actually takes place because some of it is just so distasteful. But as you said earlier, the Bilderberg meeting has been ongoing. It's probably closed by now. But my question is, we've got organizations like a number of universities, a couple of reporters, staff writer from The Atlantic, for instance. OpenAI is there. But why is Stacey Abrams there?
That's a really good question. I skipped over her name when I read through the list.
It's the very first name on the list.
It is, and I somehow missed it. I was looking at other names like, the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman. Joseph Borrell, who's the vice president and the foreign minister of the European Commission. Albert Bourla, chairman of Pfizer. He's there.
There's a member from the board of Shell who's there. So you've got the oil industry, you've got pharmaceutical industries, you've got World Economic Forum, of course.
The CEO of DeepMind, Demis Hassabis. I don't even know how you pronounce it. Hassabi?
I don't know.
Demi. Avril Haines, the United States Director of National Intelligence.
Oh, yes. That's interesting.
Henry Kissinger, of course. He's always there.
I was looking to see if anyone from BlackRock is there, and I'm sure they are.
Yeah, Craig Mundy, who used to be the chief technology officer at Microsoft. He's now president of his own consulting firm. But the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, is there. Michael O'Leary, the group CEO of Ryanair, he's often in the news saying something outrageous.
The Hoover Institution.
Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google. Peter Thiel.
Yep.
Who is a well-known transhumanist and big Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Kind of an odd mix there. Thiel was an early investor in Facebook, CEO of Palantir, which is that company that scrapes social media to try to
if you've never read The Lord of the Rings, you may not know what that is, but it's essentially a crystal ball.
Thiel is also one who was taking transfusions of blood from younger kids because he wants to try to live forever. He is a transhumanist. So.
Hey, there's a guy from Titan Cement Group.
Titan.
He's the treasurer for the Bilderberg meetings.
But oftentimes...
The Titan Group is the treasurer.
Interesting.
Is it Nabu? Is that his name?
Well, don't know. Stacey Abrams is very interesting, though, because often we started noticing back in the 90s that young up-and-coming politicians who were invited to Bilderberg often then wound up
running for a big office, like winning. Presidency.
Yeah, Bill Clinton, Tony Blair,
Tom Tugendhat.
Yeah,
remember he was trying to become the prime minister, and I kind of liked him.
Right.
And he's at the Bilderbergs.
Tory MP from the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
So, this is a group that it gets together to discuss how they can run our lives for the year. There have been a lot of talks about how the Bilderbergs, secretly control things behind the scenes.
Oh, I don't think they do. I think
because they're
a red herring.
They're all exactly right. They're too high profile. I mean, these are people who can't go to the for a coffee without having press follow them. So
there are a good half a dozen journalists on this group, and they always have journalists and anchors from TV shows, like Peter Jennings, I think, went
favorable. Yeah, in this case, Ann Applebaum from the Atlantic. She's a progressive journalist and commentator.
But I think it's to have these slow leaks that make it seem like the secret group is the one that you need to zone in on for your conspiracy hat wearing crowd. But look, I think that they are. I think that they're just a distraction.
Oh, the president of the World Economic Forum. Brenda is there. Yeah.
I think, again, this I think is a red herring, and
yeah.
There's something else going on that we have no idea about. Spiritually speaking, the spirits don't generally, say, hey, the council, the infernal council had a meeting, and they invited this person and that person. They made these decisions about how your lives are going to be ruined in the near future. And oh, by the way, here's an AI drawing of what it's going to look like in 2050. Oh, it looks like Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Seriously, there was an AI drawing of Great Britain in 2050, and it looked like a scene from Blade Runner.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well.
Yeah, today is the last day of the Bilderberg meeting, by the way, in Lisbon, Portugal.
No.
So just a weekend conference.
Just a weekend.
Yeah. Look, it only takes us a 3-day weekend to decide how to run the world for the next year.
Yeah.
It's sort of like in ancient Mesopotamia, when all the gods of the cities of Mesopotamia would travel to Nippur, to the temple of the Enlil, who was the chief god, the father god of Mesopotamia, to determine the fates of the land for the coming year.
Yes.
This is kind of what the Bilderberg
like
Group
that.
is.
It's exactly like, and these human beings, I would venture to say that not one of them is aware that they're being used.
Probably not. There may be a few in there who understand that they're playing for the dark side, but
I don't know.
I think most of them honestly think that they are they are called to this mission to help create a heaven on earth.
I say pray for these individuals. Well, total left turn.
Should we take a break?
Yes, let's do that. We're going to take a turn to the left.
Oh, just metaphorical, not political.
No.
Okay, good.
We don't go to the left politically.
We've recorded a lot of video over the last 8 years, and we're truly thankful that so many of you have been blessed by our teachings, presentations, our travel augmentaries of our tours through Israel. But sending videos to other parts of the world can get expensive, so we've now made all of our video content available on demand. Stream our video in full HD with instant access at gilberthouse.org/video. And during the months of May and June, you can save 20% with promo code VIDEO20 at checkout. That's VIDEO20. Video on demand for as little as $3 for 7 days access and 20% off with promo code VIDEO20.
But if you prefer DVDs, that promo code works for you too. Log on to gilberthouse.org/store, use video20 at checkout, and save 20% on all DVDs. 20% off all streaming video and DVDs with promo code video20 at gilberthouse.org.
Welcome back to P.I.D. Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and boy, we just want to thank you again for all of your help and all of your prayers. And we delight in the fact that we get to spend every day, trying our best to serve the Lord. We don't really do a great job every day. Mm-hmm. Some days are better than others, but we're doing our best. So thank you for all of those prayers. The left turn.
Yes.
Is into Dolman territory.
Oh,
yeah. This is a story that I saw this morning at the Daily Mail, which is one of my favorite places to go because not only do you get sort of National Enquirer sort of stories there, you can get those at the Daily Star too, but you also get real journalism, which is why the whole Hunter Biden story. Mm-hmm. That was the one of just two places where you could find information on that for a long time.
The Daily Mail and the New York Post.
And they're still doing their best to get that story out there. Well, this one has to do with the comedian James Corden, who I think was doing the Late Show or something
or the
like that.
Late Show. Or...
Yeah, one of those. I'm never awake for those. It might be about the time I'm actually getting up. But he's moving back home to England, and he has a large property there that, strangely enough, has a very strange stone. Yes, you can open that. Do that again. Stone formation. It has what appears to be a very large dolmen, which, if you are unfamiliar with that, we've talked about them a lot. Picture the symbol for pi.
Okay, yeah.
Two sides and then a top. That's essentially a table. It's Britannic, or dolmen means table. So they're made from very big, heavy stones, and around this are a collection of other stones that appear to be formed in some sort of a circular shape, a hinge shape, but this didn't originate there. In other words, it was moved from the island of Jersey, not New Jersey. This is Jersey.
Old
it's one
Jersey,
of the
regular
Channel
Jersey.
Islands, and Jersey that is close to
proper
France.
Jersey. Yeah,
yeah, the original one. In 1788, there was a decision by the British military, the Navy, the military, I think it was maybe in the Army, to put a parade ground on Jersey. And they chose that area, sort of a big meadow. Today, somebody would say, no, that's a nature preserve. You can't do that. And they needed to get rid of these stones, these old Neolithic structures.
Yeah, it's in the way of where the soldiers are going to march.
It's in the way, so it was moved.
Yeah. 1788.
Doing that?
1788, and yes, those are really big honking rocks.
How did they move those?
Well, 1788, I imagine they used some engineering.
I'm sure they did,
tackle,
but then they have to put them on barges or something to transport them over to England. Work. So anyway, that's how they ended up over there. But the question is, what were they for originally? Now, Jersey wants them back, by the way. England has said, no, they're heritage monuments. They're not. They're actually our heritage monuments.
Right. That seems kind of silly that...
Can you imagine? Well, there is that rumor that Stonehenge was originally in Ireland, and it was moved. Or in Wales, it was moved.
Well, I know the stones come from Wales. Some of the blue stones.
No, there is a belief by some that it was moved from an original location and was set up in the same way in England on Salisbury Plain.
I did not know that.
One of those crazy
Neolithic
ideas.
Parade ground for the Neolithic
I'm sure they did.
Irish
They
Army.
just wanted, a nice place
the Irish
for their
Neolithic
parades.
Army.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of work involved there. It seems kind of silly that, this is the only place we can have the parade ground. And these stones just happen to be right in the middle of it. So, no, it seems to me like somebody had a nice estate back in England. It's like, this would be the perfect lawn ornament
like a folly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like those garden follies.
Yeah.
They put up something that looks super old, but it's actually not. So, yeah, it'll probably not go back to Jersey, but I found it really interesting that this comedian has some sort of ritualistic structure on his land. Because when you look at the original survey of it before it was moved, nothing was inside. No bones or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which is true of almost all dolmens.
That's true. Now, it's not clear as to whether that's because they were never used for burials or because they've just been robbed out, because most of these dolmens been sitting where they sit for at least 4,000 years, some even longer.
Sit in the place where you sit.
And face north. Yeah.
They usually are.
But the Shamir dolmen that we visited in Israel, they actually did find 3 sets of human remains that have been buried in there.
That's a rare find.
Yeah. Now, the question is, and this is unknown, were they buried at the time the dolmen was built, or was it reused as a burial chamber later? The dolmen found by Dr. Stephen Collins at the site of Tal el Hammam, which is, we agree with him that this is the site of ancient Sodom, was sort of concealed. You couldn't really see it because of underbrush and growth. And it does not appear to have been robbed out at all and was not used for burial purposes. There were individual bones and things that were inside that were apparently left as offerings to the ancestors, to the dead, over the course of its use, which spanned a couple thousand years by their reckoning, based on the type of pottery, the changing types of pottery inside the dolmen. Their theory is that they were used as a sky burial. You'd put the body of your deceased on top of the dolmen, bones picked clean by scavengers, birds mostly. Then you take the bones and you deposit them in shaft graves, which they found in the vicinity of Tal el Hammam. But bear in mind, that's a long ways away from Neolithic England, so
right.
And the Isle of Jersey. So we don't know if they were used the same way.
I think they were probably used ritualistically, the way that the tombs of the giants on Sardinia are, for some sort of communication with the dead / demons. They're speaking of the dead.
To Corden's credit, though, he is working with the Isle of Jersey and says, "Look, you're welcome to have them back, and if we can't move them, you can take a 3D scans and either recreate a 3D model of it or create a 3D virtual model that you can display."
Yes, well, good for him. However, it's not in his hands. True. It's the heritage people there in England. It's a scheduled site. So, speaking of the dead,
yes.
I discovered this morning, you and I are doing research for a book that we hope to come out this year. We get involved in a lot of things, and sadly, that we call The Gates of Hell. And it has to do with rituals performed for the ancestors, the idea of the afterlife in the ancient mind. And one way to figure that out is to go to island nations or tribal nations that are still practicing the same things that their ancestors did. As look at, and it's one reason I think that Judd Burton studied anthropology, so he could take a look at these. Well, in Indonesia, in the mountains of Sulawesi, there is a tradition of not burying your loved one until A, you can afford it, and B, you can afford it. In other words, you are saving up because the richer the funeral, the more high status you and your dead ancestor are. For instance, a young man looking to get married might take a look at grandpa and that family and think, he's going to kick off soon. I can't afford that, because he would be responsible for making a big deal. You have to sacrifice buffaloes and pigs. The water buffaloes, their horns are mounted on the front of the house, and the more horns you have on the front of your house, the more status you have. So some of these families will keep the loved one at home for years.
Until they can afford the proper
burial. And once they have that, then there's this big burial. And the loved one, in some cases, is either put into a cave or into an elaborate coffin that's hung on the side of the mountain. And then there's a little hut that's like a little balcony that is constructed. And effigies of the loved ones are placed as if they're watching over you.
Well, that's a very old practice.
It's a very strange practice.
Very strange, but
and they would periodically take them out.
Oh, yeah.
Clean them up, dress them again, walk them around, pray, dance with them, and then put them back in.
Madagascar, with the elaborate, very well-constructed burial huts that they...
Yes. So how is it that Madagascar and Indonesia have such similar practices?
Well, that's a really good question. I would say there's the same spiritual source behind it.
So would I.
Yeah. The reason I say this is a very old practice, you go back and look at the phenomenon of the Jericho skulls, which we saw a couple of at the Archaeology Museum in Amman, Jordan. They would take the skulls of their deceased ancestors. Once the rest of the body had been defleshed, they bury the rest of the body. They keep the head, and then they decorate it by plastering it, put shells in for the eyes. Oh, look, we got some really great little, shells there. It looks like he's winking at us. It's great. And keep those on display, apparently. But this was a Neolithic practice that is also attested in southern Turkey at Çatalhöyük, in northwest Iran. So that was a very widespread phenomenon, too. And at that same point in time, by the way, they in the Near East anyway, which would be what we would look at now and call the Middle East, head shaping. People binding the heads of their kids to make them into points.
Lots of them have been found.
Some people will look at that and say, well, that's evidence of gene tampering. Well, we don't know that because I don't think anyone's done any DNA testing on those bones.
In most cases.
Head binding is probably, but the question is why?
Why do that? What are you imitating?
Yeah. Yeah. What are you imitating?
Yeah, because if you look at some of the statues of the reptilian mother and child.
Right. The Ophidian
figures, they've got those sort of weird heads.
With the coffee bean eyes, which is weird. Which, oddly enough, when you put shells in the eye sockets of your dead grandpa's skull, kind of look like those coffee bean eyes.
I hadn't even thought about that.
I hadn't either till just now.
You're right. You are right.
Very, very odd. Well, this show took a turn I didn't expect.
Well, while we're on this very interesting path, and again, if you're new to P.I.D. radio, the P.I.D. part stands for Peering into Darkness, which means that we look at politics, we look at everything going on in the world, and we try to see the spiritual activity behind it. And Derek and I, because of that, we've gotten really interested in ancient practices because there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
What happened then is happening now. I just found out about a god, a Latin god, a Roman god, that I wasn't even aware of. Did you know that there are different gods for different types of thunder and lightning?
I did not. I thought Jupiter was the dude. Jupiter, Zeus, Baal.
Well, Jupiter is the god of daylight thunder.
Oh.
The god of nocturnal thunder is Sumanus.
Sumanus.
Two M's. Summanus. Sumanus.
I did not know that they had a god for nighttime lightning.
Isn't that interesting? Pliny thought it was probably Etruscan, that this god was an Etruscan god. The Etruscans, if I understand it correctly, believed in 9 gods of thunder.
That's very interesting. The Etruscans are really interesting people because they occupied the area north of Rome, in north of the Latins in the ancient Italy. Obviously, this was long before that was Italy, but on that peninsula. But it is likely that the Etruscans were survivors of the Trojan War, the Trojans.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
Probably a people who originated in Anatolia and fled the fall of Troy around the time of there was a huge disruption in cultures around the year 1200 BC in and around the Mediterranean. Scholars call it the Bronze Age collapse. It was the end of the Bronze Age, beginning of the Iron. And the Hittite Empire collapsed. Egypt almost fell to these invaders, but you also had a number of other kingdoms that disappeared around that time. And Troy, the fall of Troy, was probably one of the wars that was fought at around that period. But
that Romulus and Remus were descended from Aeneas?
That's according to Virgil, who wrote, 1,200 years later.
Yeah,
so
I know.
1,100 years later. But yeah, but anyway, the point being that a lot of the religion of Rome was influenced by the religion of Anatolia, which shouldn't be a surprise because the Greco-Roman pantheons were almost identical.
Right.
And it's pretty clear from what we now know of the ancient Hurrian religion, who predated the Hittites by a couple thousand years, that their origin story of, Uranus, the sky god, who's castrated by his son Kronos, who's overthrown by his son Zeus, that comes from the Hurrians. And Anu being overthrown by Kumarbi, being overthrown by Teshub. It's the same story, different details, but
and
the
it's
same
a
story.
region near the Ararat Mountains.
Yep.
It makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it?
That's where the Hurrians originated, the Ararat Plain. So but the god of nocturnal thunder.
Now, I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking this already, so let me just say that I too have thought of this. If the Etruscans believed in 9 gods of thunder, is that in any way, shape, or form connected to Revelation chapter 10, verses 3 and 4? And when the 7 thunders utter their voices. These are thunders that are personified. 7 thunders uttered their voices.
It's a good question.
John's not allowed to write down what they say.
Yeah. There's an old belief in Mesopotamia of 7 entities who followed behind the war god Era. And I've forgotten what they're called. But, it's similar to, the 7... That number comes up again and again. 7 judges of the underworld.
I just want to make a point, though, in case you're wondering. Derek and I do not believe that these 7 thunders are part of the Etruscan pantheon.
Oh, no.
These are entities created by Yahweh, created by our Lord God Almighty, and these entities are in heaven. There may be a version of them in the infernal realm, because the infernal realm copies the Lord's assembly every time.
Sort of like the shadow ministers in the UK.
Yeah. Except very shadowy, as in shadow of, the
true thing.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. Yeah, Pliny mentions 9 gods of the Etruscans who had the power of wielding thunderbolts, pointing toward Martianus's Novenciles. I don't know, Novenciles? That's how we'd say it in English, as gods pertaining to the use of thunder and lightning as signs. So it was for the purpose of divining the future. Within the Etruscan religion, Jupiter had the power to wield 3 types of admonitory lightning sent from 3 different celestial regions. And for the 2 types of harmful or crushing lightning, Jupiter required the approval of de consentes.
By the way, the Novenciles are deities of obscure significance.
Yeah.
We don't know what they are, but apparently they're referred to in some inscriptions.
Oh, this is interesting. For completely destructive or burning lightning.
Ooh.
Jupiter required the approval of de superiores et involuti, the hidden gods of the higher sphere.
Now, let me tell you where I got Sumanus in the first place.
Yeah.
There was a story about a statue of Hercules, I think, that has been uncovered. It was in the Vatican, and it's been covered in what looked just like, maybe it was dirty. Well, in cleaning it, it was discovered that it had a wax coating over gold. The statue was covered in gold, and it had an inscription that implied that it had been struck by lightning by Sumanus, so struck by lightning at night, and therefore it was a divine statue. The statue itself had taken on divinity because of the lightning strike within it.
I see.
It had been activated by this deity.
Therefore,
they covered in gold. Yeah, is right, because you don't often find statues that are covered in gold.
No. The more we dig into the the cosmology, the religions of the ancient world, the more we realize, the less we know. But and that's why if you try to dial down to a really granular level and say, okay, this equals this exactly, you'll go nuts because it doesn't. It doesn't. And I think that's by design, to try to get you distracted and running down blind, dead-end alleys. Step back, look big picture. Big picture is the fallen world has presented a false narrative. The sky god doesn't care about us. He's off and he's away somewhere. And besides, he's been castrated. He is powerless. But his son, who did the castration, well, he's banished to the netherworld. Well, yeah, those would be equated to the Titans or the Watchers of the book of 1 Enoch, the sons of God from Genesis chapter 6, who Peter and Jude both place in chains in gloomy darkness, Peter specifically putting them in Tartarus. So that's the real story. The fake news version is to explain why those powerful gods who once walked the earth, the Titans, or as the Hurrians called them, the former gods, are no longer here. But these other ones are with us. They're ruled by the storm god, who Jesus identified in Matthew 12, verses 22 through 26 as Satan. So Satan is Baal, is Jupiter, is Zeus.
There you got it.
Is Thor, which is too bad because Thor is pretty funny in the movies.
If only the real Thor were. He is not. He is a deity that is a rebel, and he hates our creator.
Yeah.
He hates his creator. I mean, how foolish can you be to think that you can eventually unseat Yahweh?
I need to read Milton, and you keep reminding me of that. Gently, I will say, gently. But you're right, because when I hit something like this, I realize, okay,
trust me, when
again,
you read
this is
you'll
Milton.
Go, why didn't I read this years ago?
Yeah. But I think that's it. They somehow see themselves as entitled. And we get a little glimpse of that in the parable of the prodigal son. When the prodigal son returns covered with pig droppings and stinking to high heaven, having wasted his entire inheritance, the father welcomes him back, and the older brother says, what? They're looking at us as these weak, stupid...
The fallen realm.
The fallen realm looks at us as these weak, stupid, little, barely sentient things that God is somehow favoring. And it is just so unfair that God is giving them dominion. And as Paul wrote, do you not know we will judge the angels?
Yes.
Like, again, you just can imagine that some of those guys saying, what?
I know.
So,
well, I know. We could talk about that. So if you find that topic interesting, you might want to take a look at our book, Giants, Gods, and Dragons.
Yeah.
We get into that veneration. We also get into it in your book on Saturn.
Yeah. The second coming of Saturn dives into this entity who led that rebellion and what role he'll play in the end times. But Timothy Alberino's Birthright is also a really good analysis of this whole situation.
And speaking of Timothy Alberino, good segue. He is going to be with us next spring in Israel.
For all of his travels around the world?
Oh, no, he's going to take time out. He's never been to Israel. Wow. Can you imagine that? So he and Jasmine are going to be with us. Jasmine is delightful.
She is.
Tim is just sort of along for the ride, but it's really Jasmine that you want to hang out with.
Oh, yeah, she's a lot of fun.
Coolest ever.
Yeah. And they will be our special guests when we're in Israel from March 31st through April 9th of 2024. There's an optional 3-day extension to Jordan, which you do want to take because that will take us over to Mount Nebo. You'll see what Moses saw when he got his only look at the Promised Land, and we'll explain why that mountain, Mount Nebo, it was referred to by God as this mountain of the travelers.
Yes, indeed. And we will show you where the Valley of the Shadow of Death is. In fact, we'll be hanging out there.
Yep. We have asked to add a site to the tour that we've not had on our tours before, but we scouted it out during our pre-tour expedition this year, and that is the Shamir Dolman Field overlooking the Hula Valley, which is the valley through which the Jordan River runs between Mount Hermon and the Sea of Galilee. And this dolmen at the center of this field, 400 dolmens in this dolmen field, but at the center of the field is one with a 50-ton capstone. So, and the only dolmen that's been discovered, there may be one other now. I don't think the paper's been published on it yet, but at the time it was discovered 10 years ago, the petroglyphs on the underside, the only dolmen north of Yemen that had any inscriptions on the inside, which makes it really unique, really important.
And they are there. We saw them.
Mm-hmm. Kind of hard
incredible.
to find, but you can see them. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really, really incredible. And once you understand why our Lord spent so much time there in his ministry on earth and the promises that he gives us in Psalm 23, that makes that place really, really, really important. So yeah, plan to go with us. You can go to gilberthouse.org/travel, get all the information there. And while you're at gilberthouse.org, download that app at /app and go to the store. Guess what? It's /store.
This month, as you heard in our break during the middle, 20% off on all video streaming and DVD. Take advantage of that with promo code VIDEO20. VIDEO20 saves 20% on all of our video, both streaming and DVD.
You know, speaking of the Valley of the Shadow of Death, you and I are going to be talking about that at His Call Ministries.
Oh, I'm glad you remembered.
In just about, 2 weeks.
Yep. We'll be in Sparta, Missouri, or just outside Sparta at the beautiful Finley River Ranch. For His Call Ministries, we will be there for the entire weekend, teaching Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday morning. And that will be the focus of our discussion, as we will share video and images, pictures from our tour to Israel, including this Shamir Dolman, explaining why that is important. The Valley of the Shadow of Death is not just a figure of speech, it's a literal place.
Right.
And Jesus pointed to it with where he based his ministry. The north end of that valley, where he declared his divinity, the south end, where he got baptized and based his ministry. That is key, and we will go through all of that during that weekend. So for more information, go to hiscallministries.com, hiscallministries.com. We've got links to all of our upcoming tours at all of our upcoming events, I should say.
Including the one in Ohio.
Oh, yes. Yes. Calendar link in our menu bar at gilberthouse.org, also in the right-hand column at the website. The Go Therefore Conference, July 28th and 29th.
Whoa, what a lineup. I mean, not just Dr. Mike Spalding and L.A. Marzulli, but also Michael Lake and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, David Heavener, Randy Conway, Vicki Joy Anderson, Nathan Branham,
Pastor
David
Casper
Paxton,
McLeod.
Kenny C.
Yes.
Casper McLeod, Tom Dunn, Coach Dave, Dr. Gregory Reed. Look, Tom Dunn, Vicki Joy Anderson, Greg Reed, if you have issues with the spirit realm, or if your children or grandchildren are going through this, you need to talk to them. So come and join us.
Yes, this will be a wonderful weekend, and we pray that we see you there. You get information and register at GoThereforeConference.com, GoThereforeConference.com, and boy, that is just going to be a wonderful weekend of fellowship.
I mean, incredible. And so many people who are going to be there really do deal with these issues. Mike Lake does, Ellie Marzulli does.
Yes.
David Heavener does.
Yeah. There will be a lot of ministry taking place that weekend at the Harvest Revival Center. This is in Brookville, Ohio. Brookville, not Brookline, which does not exist.
Don't even say line anymore. Just say Brookville, Ohio. Northwest side of Dayton. So yeah, you can fly in if you want to, and then rent a car or just drive if you're nearby.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably it. We've got an interview coming up in a few minutes. So
right. Join us tomorrow for our Gilbert House Fellowship Bible study as we continue through the life and times of David. And
I like that.
Evening.
That's a book title.
Yeah, probably has been.
Yeah, probably.
And tomorrow night, the View from the Bunker program is Iron and Myth.
Oh.
Iron and Myth number, I forget if it's 16 or 17.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We talk about powers, principalities, thrones, and dominions, the New Testament terms for supernatural entities. And as we try to figure out the hierarchy of the spirit realm, we basically conclude, we don't know.
But it's a great discussion, so you don't want to miss that.
Yeah, that's tomorrow night on VFTB.net. Until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
P.I.D. Radio is an outreach of Gilbert House Ministries, released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, PIDradio.com, Twitter @PIDradio, or by downloading our free app, PIDradio.com/app or GilbertHouse.org/app. Join us each week for our Bible study, The Gilbert House Fellowship.